If you're experiencing harassment in the workplace or workplace bullying in Canada, there are strict employment laws and human rights policies to protect employees from workplace harassment, which employers are required under the Canada Labour Code to comply with. In this video, I'm going to define what workplace harassment is, give you some examples of harassment and bullying in the workplace, and explain steps you should take with your employer. I'll also explain further steps you can take if your employer doesn't respond appropriately to your complaint, or if the harassment is coming directly from the business owner. And if you aren't employed in Canada, I'll give you some great resource tips to find out what your country's workplace harassment policies are. Hello, I'm Stacey Davidson, founder and CEO of Virtual Job Search Coach since 2008. Welcome to my channel where I teach techniques and strategies to help you determine, pursue, and land your dream job. Workplace bullying and harassment has occurred for decades, but thanks to the Me Too movement, improved human rights laws, and progressive employment laws in many countries, things are changing for the better. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to deal with bullying and harassment based on Canada's employment laws. But if you're outside of Canada, your country likely has similar laws, so do an online search for workplace harassment laws in your country and state. Henry Karras and Associates, based in Australia, has a guide to workplace bullying laws on their website that lists general laws for a number of countries and all continents, and I'll put a link in the description box to view the guide. First, let's start off with some facts. In 2019, changes were made to the Canada Labour Code that, as of 2020, require employers to develop a harassment and violence in the workplace policy that includes preventative measures that mitigate the risk of harassment and violence in the workplace, a process for complaint resolution, and they're required by law to investigate any misconduct. Now, before we get further in, here's a reminder to please give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and tap that notification bell to be alerted when my next video is out. Let's start with a definition of what harassment in the workplace is under the Canada Labour Code. Harassment and violence is defined as any action, conduct, or comment, including of a sexual nature, that can reasonably be expected to cause offense, humiliation, or other physical or psychological injury or illness to an employee, including any prescribed action, conduct, or comment. Examples of workplace bullying and harassment can include verbal aggression, yelling or threats, physical threats including aggressive and threatening gestures, being talked down to, insulted, called names, someone who makes fun of you in the workplace, or spreads malicious rumors. Behaviors that are humiliating or intimidating, making personal attacks based on someone's private life or personal traits. It can also include vandalizing someone's personal belongings, sabotaging someone's work, or being set up for failure, such as not being given proper information or tools to perform your job. Being excluded from meetings or activities that are relevant to the performance of your job. This type of behavior is not appropriate and is harassment. Bullying can include intimidation, striking fear, or causing distress in a coworker for the purpose of asserting control or power over the employee. Now, let's talk about what bullying and harassment behavior does not include. Expressing a difference in opinion, offering constructive feedback or advice about a work-related behavior, and does not include appropriate or reasonable action taken by the employer or supervisor relating to the management or direction of workers or the place of employment, such as managing a worker's performance, work evaluation, assigning work, or disciplinary actions. Have you ever experienced harassment or bullying in the workplace? Tell me about it in the comment section below. I experienced sexual harassment twice and bullying once at 3 different employers back in the late 90s, long before there were bullying and harassment laws in Canada. The bullying and intimidation situation got so bad it caused me to go on stress leave, and I eventually quit. What was sad was that I really loved my job, but there were no laws back then to protect me as an employee. Workplace bullying and harassment was not recognized back then, so there was no procedure and no policy on how to deal with it or who to file a complaint with. So I'm thankful that Canada, as well as many other countries around the world, have since taken action on this issue, because everyone has the right to work, to feel safe and free of bullying, violence, and harassment in the workplace. As I mentioned earlier, in Canada, employers are now required under the new legislation to prevent workplace harassment. They have a duty to protect their employees from all forms of verbal, physical, and mental harassment in the workplace. They must have policies in place that clearly define harassment and what steps an employee is to take if they feel that they're being harassed or bullied at work. The employer has a responsibility to take action to resolve a harassment issue when a complaint is made. If you feel you're being harassed or bullied at work, as an HR consultant, here are 3 steps I recommend you take. Step number 1, do not confront the person who is bullying or harassing you. I hate to use the word victim, but I think for anyone who feels they're being victimized, or let's say mistreated, their first fear is that they have to confront the person who's doing the bullying or harassing before reporting it. Absolutely not. In fact, approaching the bully can sometimes make things worse, so don't feel that you're required to confront them because you're not. So that leads me to step number 2. Step number 2 is to report it. The problem won't go away if you don't do anything about it, and workplace harassment can lead to mental health issues, stress, or medical leave, and you can take action before it gets that bad. Remember, your employer has an obligation to fix it, so give them the opportunity by speaking to someone. Bring the situation to your employer's attention by talking to your manager, HR department, or an owner, and put your complaint in writing, and I'll talk about that more in the next step. If you're in a small company where there's no HR department, or it's the owner that's doing the harassing, or you've reported the harassment to your employer and they haven't responded to your claim within a reasonable time frame, then you're best to seek outside support of an employment lawyer. As an employee, you have rights under the law in Canada. I'm not an employment lawyer, so I can't get into the details, but I can confirm 2 things. Number 1, an employee cannot be punished in any way for bringing up harassment allegations. An employer who punishes an employee for raising a case of harassment could face a human rights complaint. And number 2, when an employee suffers bullying or harassment in the workplace that goes unaddressed by the company, that is a breach of the terms of employment. And an employment lawyer can help an employee file a constructive dismissal due to a poisoned or toxic workplace. And an employment lawyer can help you get out of that situation with compensation. In the case of a constructive dismissal, an employee could be owed full severance pay, as well as there's a possibility for additional damages depending on the nature of the situation. If you're in British Columbia, Alberta, or Ontario, check out employmentlawyer.ca. That will take you to a legal firm called Samfiru Tumarkin. They have an incredible team of lawyers who specialize in employment and disability law. They also have a radio show called the Employment Law Show. I'm a big fan. And some great resource information on their website, Knowledge Center. So definitely check it out. Now, here's one of my hot tips. If you're employed in Canada, check out www.severancepaycalculator.com. This is an amazing free tool to find out how much severance you're entitled to based on age, job title, and a few other variables. I'm quite sure you'll be surprised to find out how much severance you're actually entitled to if you're terminated by your employer, or if you have a justified constructive dismissal case. And just to be clear, when I say employed in Canada, I mean geographically. If you work in Canada, even if your employer is based in another country, as an employee, you fall under Canada's employment laws. And step number 3, put it in writing. Document any incidents you have with bullying and harassment in the workplace. Write down the dates and times of the events, details of the circumstances and what occurred, who was involved, and if there were any witnesses. This becomes your evidence to provide a copy to your employer. Always keep your own copy. And if your situation requires that you seek the help of an employment lawyer, this documentation will become very handy. Harassment, bullying, and violence in the workplace should not be tolerated. It creates a toxic and unhealthy work environment. The law protects the physical and mental health of workers in Canada. If you've been harassed or bullied in the workplace or are currently experiencing it, please share your experience in the comments. Let's support each other to take action. I also want to let you know to check out my video, Warning Signs of a Bad Employer, How to Spot Toxic Work Culture in the Interview. In there, I provide some great tips on how to recognize a bad employer or work culture before you accept a new job. And to give you some encouragement, inspiration, and motivation on your job search journey, I want you to download my Successful Job Seekers Manifesto. It's absolutely free, and the link is in the description box below. Print it off, stick it on your fridge, wall, save it in your phone, and refer to it whenever you need a little pick-me-up. I hope it will remind you of how valuable you are and provide you with some empowerment and encouragement when you're feeling stuck or frustrated. If you found today's video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you know someone who's looking for work, please share this video with them. Here are some of my other videos you might also like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.